Cinematic Shuffle has shuffled once again, and this is pre-recorded because I'm on vacation. But at some point last week, I would have given you my 3 weekly hints for what this film was going to be. And those 3 hints would have been that it's a sequel, that there's a musical festival, and there's also a weird naked Indian. If you've seen the movie whatsoever, then that last hint's a dead giveaway for Wayne's World 2, which is what this film is. At this point, I don't know if anybody's guessed it right or wrong, or if anybody has guessed whatsoever, since this is scheduled out so far in advance. But if you got it right, give yourself a nice pat on the back and let's get cracking on Wayne's World 2. In Wayne's World 2, Wayne's visited in his dreams by the late Jim Morrison, who tells Wayne he has to do something with his life, starting with creating a music festival featuring a bunch of famous artists that haven't even agreed to do it. But according to Jim Morrison, if you book them, they will come. Oh yes, they will come. I'm gonna be honest, for the very first time during the Cinematic Shuffle, I'm pretty sure I haven't actually seen this movie before. I think I added it to the list because I did see the original film before, and at the time I was pretty sure I saw the sequel as well, but after last night, I'm not so sure. Nothing about this movie I remembered whatsoever. Now, as you could probably tell from the plot analysis, they borrow a lot of the gimmick from Field of Dreams for some reason. I would also say there's a few instances like that in the movie as a whole where they spoof certain pop culture references of the time, which for the most part don't translate that well for a modern audience. They did the same thing in the first movie. In this movie, you got things like Thelma and Louise, the weird unexplained Jurassic Park scene, the Karate Kid crane kick, the Leprechaun horror film, the list goes on. I noticed these things because I've been around for some time and I'm familiar with the connections, but for most modern audiences, they're not gonna really catch each reference, and a lot of the jokes might end up falling flat for them. Weirdly enough though, they do use the Mission Impossible song, and that's a weird reference because they're not referencing the movies, they're referencing the TV show because the movies hadn't come out yet. So they didn't realize in 2023 that's the one and only reference that's ironically still relevant. One of my main complaints of the first film was that it didn't really have a plot, and this movie actually does have a plot. They have to, 1, set up this musical festival, 2, Wayne is trying to retain some sense of masculinity to keep his girlfriend around when she keeps getting closer and closer to her producer, played by the one and only Christopher Walken. Wow. And Garth's storyline also has to do with the opposite sex. So there's a lot of this idea of growing up, acting your age in the foundation of this film that's revisited time and time again throughout the runtime. But like the first movie, it's also really interested in having these pop culture references and silly gags that aren't really connected to anything else. I already mentioned the Jurassic Park thing, but also there's a hilarious scene with the YMCA song that I thought was the best and the most hilarious moment in the entire film because of the build-up and the execution. It's great, but at the same time, it removes from the actual organic flow of the film. So weirdly enough, I would say there's elements of this film that I prefer over the first, especially when it comes down to the narrative. But as a comedy, the more obscure nature of the first film takes the cake for me. Wayne and Garth seem to live in a fantasy world, so the more colorful, the more obscure and odd the story is, the more it kind of lines up with who they are and where they originated as an SNL skit, right? This film is more grounded, yeah, but grounding characters like this transforms them in a way, turning them into something a little bit more bland and boring, if I'm being completely honest. Again, the series has always been a weird one for me because I didn't grow up watching Wayne's World on SNL. And a lot of their pop culture references throughout both films are kind of, sort of, lost on me, especially for the first movie. The second one I caught a little bit more because I was technically a little bit older. I scored Wayne's World 2 a C+ letter grade, final overall score of 68%, 68 out of 100 possible stars. As expected, I did score the previous film higher, but not by much. In general, they both feel like Wayne's World should feel like, but the first has much more of an edge, just based on how silly and how ridiculous it is. But there you go, guys. Have you seen Wayne's World 2? If you have, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and the bell to be notified when I come out with my next installment for the Cinematic Shuffle. And until then, peace out.